Harden and Joel Embiid is not fair. It really is not fair. I was watching them against the Knicks and against the Timberwolves. And I get it's only 2 games against teams that aren't very good defensively. And I'm going to get into a lot of the things that I saw in that game that could be of concern moving forward. And I think that will be of concern moving forward. But James Harden and Joel Embiid work together. James Harden makes the 76ers a better team than what they were before. He does. It's a simple thing. And I'm looking at it, and when I see James Harden at the top of the fucking three-point line, and he's dribbling, and I see Joel Embiid, this 7'1" MVP caliber player who's leading the league in points, and this guy is huge. He's one of the most strong players in the NBA. Again, I think another All-Star game event, the All-Star should start having like a combine, and I'd love to see who's stronger between Steven Adams and Joel Embiid. I think that'd be just very entertaining to see. But when I see Joel Embiid setting a screen for James Harden at the top of the three-point line, I know it's over. I know it's GG. There's going to be buckets coming out of this, or at least a wide open shot when Harden kicks it to the corner or something like that, because teams will double team. That's what the Knicks are doing. The Knicks are doubling Harden and doubling Joel Embiid. You have to double 2 players on this team. That is insane. That's why Maxi's going to start going off. I think Tobias Harris will start to thrive. Matisse Thybulle, maybe not offensively, but defensively, he was really good in the game today. I just kind of tossed it in there. But I'll say this right now. James Harden and Joel Embiid are the best duo in the NBA right now. They are. And the thing with Harden is, and I said this over and over again when he was in Brooklyn, James Harden in Brooklyn was purposefully having, I guess you could say, worse stats or like lesser stats. His statistics, his stat lines were not as impressive as they were in Houston. And Harden was doing that on purpose. He wasn't scoring 36 points per game, not because he wasn't able to score 36 points per game in Brooklyn. He can still score the basketball, but because he didn't need to. It wasn't his role. He had Kevin Durant. He had Kyrie. At least one of them. Most of the time it was Kevin Durant. There was the whole injuries, and they barely played together. But when it was him and KD, Harden knew, all right, KD's my guy. I'm going to work with him. And I said this over and over again. James Harden is willingly, and he's choosing to score less. And in Philadelphia, we've already seen him put up some really nice numbers. I think we're going to see James Harden of Houston, James Harden of old coming back. I don't expect him to be putting up 36, 40 points per game. Not at all, but at least I think Harden will probably put up between 25 and 30 points per game going the rest of the way for the Philadelphia 76ers, and definitely over 10 assists per game. And by the way, the amount of times that Harden and Embiid and the whole 76ers team gets to the free throw line is frightening. It is. And I don't think it's... I really, there's nothing I can say. I'm not gonna discredit Philadelphia for getting to the free throw line so much, because Joel Embiid was already one of the most fouled players in the NBA. James Harden, we all know, he gets to the free throw line amazingly. That's maybe what he's best at, is getting foul shots. And Joel Embiid, the same thing. And now they're on a team together, and they will frustrate opponents, especially down the stretch of the season. And in the playoffs, will they get as many calls? No, but they still will get more calls than the other team. And the thing is I'm not dissing Harden and Joel Embiid here. If anything, it's a compliment. You can't stop James Harden consistently without fouling him a few times. You cannot stop Joel Embiid consistently, the most dominant big man in the NBA, in my opinion, right now, without fouling him a few times. It's gonna happen. The Knicks had Robinson and Sims fouled out at the start of the fourth quarter. The 2 centers were fouled out at the start of the fourth quarter. And it was a close game. I was watching it today. The Knicks, they held in there. They made some comebacks, and that's what I kind of want to talk about. The Knicks made the comebacks when it was just Harden on the court or just Joel Embiid on the court, because the 76ers are not very good. I was watching them. They don't look too good when it's just Harden on the court or it's just Joel Embiid on the court. They don't. They don't look great. But when they're both on the court, it makes up for it. Okay, but the Knicks went on a run when it was, I think, just Joel on the court and I think Harden on the court too at the start of the fourth quarter. The Knicks went on a run and tied the game up. But because they got into foul trouble. They all got into foul trouble because Joel Embiid was causing such havoc and James Harden was causing such havoc down low that both of the Knicks centers, big men, were kicked out of the game early in the fourth quarter, and then the 76ers just destroyed them. They ate them alive for the rest of the game. And that's what's going to happen a lot. personally, a few of my takeaways, some of my notes here. The pick and roll, I just mentioned that, deadly. Philadelphia now is my favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference. I said this earlier. Both teams, Philadelphia and Brooklyn, I think, got better after this trade. I don't think that there's the real winner is yet to be determined. Whoever makes it further in the playoffs, I guess, is the real winner of this trade. But I think the 76ers are better off now than what they were before. Now they are, in my eyes, a legitimate, genuine contender. The Brooklyn Nets, even if Ben Simmons doesn't play, if you can get Kyrie playing consistently alongside Kevin Durant, especially through the playoffs, that's enough. That really is. And if you can have the morale high and you don't have so much drama going on around, because we know Kevin Durant, we know Kyrie Irving, and James Harden too. Those are three of the most, drama follows them around everywhere. There's always shit happening when it's with Kyrie. There's always shit happening with Durant or Harden. They're always unhappy in whatever situation they're in. It happens over and over again. And now you got one of them out of the picture. You got some good pieces in there as well. Seth Curry, and especially if Ben Simmons can come back and be somewhat good, I think Brooklyn wins it too. Brooklyn got better out of the trade too. And James Harden in Philadelphia, I like a lot more than James Harden in Houston. And remember, James Harden, Philadelphia was a destination that Harden wanted to go to before he went to Brooklyn, because Daryl Morey's there, who was Harden's general manager back in Houston when the Rockets were really when they were so close to winning an NBA championship, especially in 2018. And that's the next thing. Because it's James Harden and because it's Joel Embiid, there will be very high highs and very low lows the rest of the way this year for Philadelphia. James Harden is always shit happening. Joel Embiid, we all know he's not very consistent in that throughout the years. He always gets hurt, and there's always shit. You never fully trust the health of Joel Embiid. Because it's Harden and because Joel Embiid, there will be some low moments the rest of the way. There will be some times where the media and fans alike will say, look, this team won't be able to get it done. On the same token, the very next week, we could see James Harden and Joel Embiid combine for 68 points and blow out the Phoenix Suns by 30. That is the kind of team that we're dealing with here. It's high highs and low lows. It's James Harden and Joel Embiid. That's what it's been their entire careers. It's not going to all of a sudden stop. It's not smooth sailing. We're not coasting into the playoffs now for Philadelphia. We're not coasting to the Eastern Conference Finals. There will be a lot of shit said about these two guys, about this team. The next thing is what I kind of mentioned earlier. James Harden and Joel Embiid will need to play a lot of minutes together on the court, because Philadelphia they've gotten, they're not as deep as they were before. They don't have as many ball handlers as they had before. Harden and Embiid, if they're going to be successful, if they're going to win an NBA championship this year, they will have to play together at least 30 to 35 minutes a game, ideally closer to 40 minutes a game, consistently throughout the playoffs to win an NBA championship. That's what's required. They need to be on the court together a lot. They just do. Because from the two games I've seen, the 76ers haven't looked that good without both of them on the court. They've struggled. At least that's what the eye test tells me. I haven't really done the plus minus or anything like that, but the eye test tells me that when it's just James Harden on the court and when it's just Joel Embiid on the court, it doesn't look too pretty. It just doesn't. And I already mentioned this earlier, but the lineup, my final takeaway, and this is maybe the hot take, my hottest take of the year so far, but the 5-man lineup of James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, and Matisse Thybulle are good enough to win an NBA championship. That 5-man lineup is as good as any 5-man lineup in the league. And they are that 5-man team. If you're going to tell me that this is your team, score tied, Game 7 of the NBA Finals, 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, if that 5-man team checks in, I give them just as good a shot as any other 5-man rotation lineup in the NBA. That's the team. Harden, Embiid, Harris, Maxey, and Thybulle. They can win you a championship.